Taman sat alone in the darkest corner of the council archives, his fingers trembling as he held the ancient data tablet. The glowing symbols on its surface made no sense to anyone else, but he had spent 5 years learning the dead language. Human language. Around him, towers of forgotten records stretched into shadows, gathering dust that no one bothered to clean. The council deemed this section worthless, filled with fairy tales and warnings about monsters that never existed. But Taman knew better. The mathematical patterns were too perfect, the historical records too detailed. Humans had been real, and something had made them vanish 3,000 years ago. A sharp beep from his communicator made him jump. It was Ji-Woo from Military Intelligence. "Taman, I need you in my office. Now." He tucked the tablet into his coat and hurried through the gleaming halls of Station Veritas. The contrast always struck him, the bright, optimistic architecture of the council chambers versus the gloomy archives where uncomfortable truths were buried. When he reached Ji-Woo's office, she was staring at a holographic display with an expression he had never seen on her face before. Fear. "Tell me I'm crazy," Ji-Woo said without looking at him. "Tell me these patterns mean nothing." Taman stepped closer to the display. His breath caught in his throat. The signal patterns matched perfectly with the communication protocols in the human texts he had been studying. "Where is this coming from?" "That's the problem," Ji-Woo replied, finally meeting his eyes. "It's coming from the void sector, the area we marked as uninhabitable after the surveys 400 years ago. Nothing lives there. Nothing can live there. The radiation levels alone would kill any known species within hours." "Except one," Taman whispered. He pulled out his tablet and overlaid the ancient human data with Ji-Woo's signal. They matched perfectly, like two pieces of a puzzle waiting 3 millennia to be reunited. Humans had radiation shielding technology far beyond what we have now. The records say they could survive anywhere. Ji-Woo shook her head. "Humans are myths, Taman. Stories parents tell children about the monsters who nearly destroyed the galaxy before destroying themselves. They're not real." "Then explain this signal." Before Ji-Woo could answer, the station's alarm system blared to life. Red emergency lights flooded the corridors. An announcement echoed through every speaker. "All personnel to battle stations. The Malreth swarm has entered council space. This is not a drill." Taman and Ji-Woo rushed to the command center, where chaos had erupted. Dozens of officers shouted over each other, while holographic displays showed a nightmare unfolding across multiple star systems. The Malreth, a race of insectoid creatures that consumed entire worlds, were attacking in numbers never seen before. Their ships, organic and writhing, filled the screens like a plague of locusts. "How many?" Ji-Woo demanded. "Thousands," an officer replied, his voice breaking. "They hit the Kentari system first. 12 billion dead in the first hour, then Valoris Prime, then the Helion colonies. They're not stopping. They're coming straight for us." Vorn, the elderly historian who had encouraged Taman's research, stood near the main display. His multiple eyes were wide with recognition. "Just like before," he muttered. "Just like the ancient war." "What ancient war?" the council commander asked. "The one that the humans ended," Vorn said. "Before they disappeared, the galaxy was tearing itself apart. War between every major species. Then the humans appeared, defeated everyone simultaneously, forced a peace, and vanished. The records say they left a warning. If the younger races couldn't learn to cooperate, something worse would come." "Fairy tales," the commander snapped. "We need real solutions, not bedtime stories." But Taman was no longer listening. He was staring at the signal data Ji-Woo had shown him. The transmission had increased in strength 10-fold since the Malreth attack began. And now he could see what he had missed before. It wasn't just a signal. It was a message, repeating over and over in the ancient human language. His hands shook as he decoded it. We see you. We remember our promise. But children who refuse to grow up may need to learn the hard way. Call if you choose to stand together. Otherwise, face extinction alone. They're watching us, Taemin said aloud. They've been watching us this whole time. Who? Jiwoo asked. The humans. They're not extinct. They're waiting to see if we're worth saving. The commander laughed bitterly. Even if humans were real, we don't need salvation from myths. We have the finest fleet in Council history. As if to mock his words, the display updated with devastating news. The Malreth had destroyed the outer defense fleet, 300 ships gone in minutes. The swarm was accelerating, and their trajectory was clear. They were heading directly for Station Veritas, the heart of the Council itself. Time until they reach us? Jiwoo asked quietly. 14 hours, an officer replied. The command center fell silent. 14 hours until the Malreth arrived. 14 hours until the Council, the grand alliance of 40 species, faced extinction. Taemin looked at the human message still glowing on his tablet. He thought about legends and pride, about the monsters in old stories that turned out to be warnings, not fantasies. We need to respond to the signal, he said. We need to ask for help. We will do no such thing, the commander said. The Council does not beg myths for mercy. But Jiwoo was already working at her console, her fingers flying across the controls. Then I'll do it myself. Court-martial me later if we survive. She broadcast a simple message toward the void sector, using the mathematical patterns from the ancient texts. We hear you. We need you. Please help us. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, in the depths of space where nothing should exist, energy signatures began to appear. Ships, dozens of them, emerging from hiding like ghosts, stepping into reality. And every single one was broadcasting identification codes in a language dead for 3,000 years. Commander Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching the holographic display of the galaxy he had sworn to never enter again. New Terra hung behind them. A world hidden inside an artificial nebula that made sensors scream with false radiation readings. For 3,000 years, his people had lived in self-imposed exile, watching the younger races make the same mistakes humanity once had. Sir, the Council's distress call is confirmed authentic, Da-un reported from the engineering station. Her hands moved across controls that would seem like magic to any alien observer. The Malreth swarm has breached their outer defenses. They'll reach Station Veritas in less than 14 hours. And if we do nothing? Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew the answer. 40 species die, Da-un replied quietly. Billions of lives, maybe trillions before the Malreth finish consuming this spiral arm. Jae-sung, the diplomatic liaison, stepped forward. He was younger than most on the bridge, born after the isolation began. He had never seen an alien, never spoken to another species. None of them had. Commander, the Council voted 3 centuries ago. We don't interfere. We let them grow on their own or fail on their own. Those were the terms of our exile. Those terms were made when we thought they had time, Hyunwoo said. He turned to face his crew, seeing the weight of history in their eyes. Our ancestors withdrew because we were too powerful, too dangerous. Every time we tried to help, we accidentally controlled. Every time we shared technology, we stifled their development. We became the thing they feared most, benevolent tyrants who made them weak. So we let them die? Da-un asked, and there was anger in her voice. We have weapons that could stop the Malreth. We have ships that could turn the tide. We sit here with the power to save billions, and we do nothing. Show me the legacy arsenal status, Hyunwoo ordered. Da-un's fingers danced across her console. The display changed, showing vast underground facilities on New Terra. weapons that hadn't been fired in 3,000 years. Ships designed for a war so terrible that humanity had chosen extinction over continuing to fight. Kinetic accelerators that could crack planets, nanite swarms that could disassemble fleets at the molecular level, dimensional disruptors that bent space itself into a weapon. All functional, Da-Un reported. We maintained them as a memorial, a reminder of what we could do and why we must never do it again. Hyun-woo remembered the stories his grandmother had told him. She had been alive during the last days before the isolation, had seen the aftermath of humanity's final war. The galaxy had been tearing itself apart, hundreds of species locked in endless conflict. Then humans, the youngest spacefaring race, had done the impossible. They had defeated everyone simultaneously, forcing peace through overwhelming power. But the price had been terrible. The younger races didn't unite in gratitude. They united in fear. Fear of the humans who could destroy anyone, anywhere, anytime. Fear that had turned to hatred, then to plans of genocide. Rather than rule through terror or fight a war of survival against everyone else, humanity had made a choice. Vanish, and give the galaxy a chance to grow up without them. "Contact the fleet," Hyun-woo said. "All ships to prepare for deployment were going in." "Sir," Jae-sung protested, "the Council made their choice when they called for help," Hyun-woo interrupted. "We've been monitoring them for 3,000 years, Jae-sung. We've watched them make progress, seen them form alliances, hoped they would be better than we were. But they're still fractured, still young, and now something worse than us is at their door." "The Malreth aren't our responsibility," Jae-sung argued. "No," Hyun-woo agreed. "But they will be our legacy if we let them destroy what we sacrificed everything to protect." The bridge fell silent. Finally, Da-Un spoke. "Orders, Commander? Standard combat doctrine. Precision strikes only. No civilian casualties. We save them, but we don't terrify them. We show them we're not the monsters from their legends." "And if they're already terrified?" Da-Un asked. "Then we prove them wrong." The human fleet emerged from the void sector like ghosts becoming real. 40 ships, sleek and deadly, built with technology that made alien sensors glitch in confusion. They moved in perfect formation, covering the distance to Station Veritas in half the time the Malreth would take. On the station, Tae-min watched the approaching human fleet with wonder and terror mixing in his chest. Ji-woo stood beside him, her military training warring with the impossibility of what they were seeing. "They're real," she whispered. "Humans are real." "And they're coming to help us," Tae-min added, "or to judge us. I'm not sure which is more frightening." The council commander had gone pale. Around the command center, officers from 40 different species stared at the displays in shock. The myths were real. The monsters from ancient stories were approaching at impossible speeds. A communication request appeared on the main screen. Ji-woo, without waiting for orders, accepted it. A face appeared on the display. Human, male, eyes that carried the weight of centuries. "This is Commander Hyun-woo of the new Terra Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to help." "Why?" the council commander demanded. "Why reveal yourselves now?" "Because you finally asked," Hyun-woo replied simply. "For 3,000 years we waited to see if you would learn to work together, to protect each other without our interference. You're not there yet, but you're trying. That's enough." "We don't need your pity," the commander said. "Good," Hyun-woo said with a slight smile, "because we're not offering it. We're offering you a chance to survive. The Malreth are 12 hours out. We can hold them off, but only if you trust us. Can you do that?" The command center erupted in argument. Some species wanted to accept immediately. Others, remembering the old stories, argued that human help would come with chains attached. Tae-min watched Hyun-woo's face during the argument. The human commander didn't look angry or impatient. He looked sad, as if watching children repeat old mistakes. Finally, Ji-woo stepped forward. "I accept your help, Commander Hyun-woo. On behalf of military intelligence and anyone else with sense, I accept." "That's enough for me," Hyun-woo said. He turned to someone off-screen. "Dayun, deploy the defense grid, standard protective pattern, and send a message to Jae-sung. It's time for him to earn his title. First contact is his responsibility." The human fleet split into defensive positions around Station Veritas. Their ships took up locations that made perfect tactical sense, covering every approach vector. Then they waited. 9 hours later, the Malreth swarm arrived, expecting prey. Instead, they found humans, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Malreth swarm hit the human defensive line like a wave crashing against a cliff. From Station Veritas, the Council officers watched in stunned silence as humanity's ships demonstrated why legends had been built around them. The human vessels moved with precision that seemed impossible, each one covering another's position while firing weapons that turned Malreth bioships into expanding clouds of debris. "How are they doing that?" Ji-woo breathed. "Their ships aren't even using shields." "They're just not getting hit." Taemin watched the tactical display, his historian's mind recognizing patterns from ancient texts. "They're not predicting where the Malreth will shoot. They're controlling where the Malreth can shoot. Every position they take eliminates attack angles. Every movement forces the enemy into kill zones." "That's not possible," an alien tactical officer said. "The coordination required would need perfect synchronization across all vessels. No species can—" "They can," Taemin interrupted. "That's what made them terrifying. Humans don't just fight together, they think together." On the Eternal Dawn's bridge, Commander Hyun-woo watched the battle with calm focus. "Da-yun, status on the enemy adaptive patterns?" "They're learning, sir," Da-yun reported. "Adjusting attack vectors to compensate for our positioning. They're smarter than the files suggested." "Expected. The Malreth survive by adaptation. Sung-ho, your team ready?" In the ship's deployment bay, Commander Sung-ho checked his armor seals one final time. Around him, 20 elite soldiers did the same. They were specialists in hostile insertion, trained for missions that required surgical precision in impossible conditions. "Ready, sir. Coordinates locked on the Malreth command cluster." "You'll have a 15-minute window," Hyun-woo said. "Get in, eliminate their coordination, get out. The Council species are watching. Show them we're precise, not destructive." "Understood," Sung-ho replied. His team loaded into stealth pods, each one designed to slip through enemy formations undetected. "Launching now!" The pods shot from the Eternal Dawn like invisible bullets, weaving through the chaos of battle. Sung-ho watched the tactical feed, seeing the Malreth swarm surrounding a planet in the nearby system. Intelligence said it was a colony world, home to 6 billion aliens. The Malreth were beginning their harvest, and the Council fleet had been too damaged to help. That was about to change. The pods landed on the largest Malreth bioship, their hulls melting through the organic armor like acid through flesh. Sung-ho's team deployed inside the alien vessel, their weapons ready. The interior was a nightmare of writhing organic matter, but they had trained for this. They moved as one unit, following the biological pathways to the command node. They encountered Malreth warriors, insectoid creatures 3 meters tall with razor-sharp limbs. The battle was brief and brutal. Human weapons cut through chitin with precise efficiency. Within minutes, Sung-ho's team reached the command node, a pulsating mass of neural tissue that coordinated the entire swarm in this sector. "Charges set," Sung-ho reported. 30 seconds to detonation." They extracted through the same holes they had entered, their pods launching back toward the human fleet. Behind them, the Malreth command ship shuddered as internal explosions tore through its control systems. Without coordination, the swarm faltered, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos. Hyunwoo immediately seized the opening. "All ships, advance! Drive them away from the colony world!" The human fleet surged forward, and for the first time, council ships joined them. It wasn't much, just a dozen vessels that had been repaired enough to fight. But it was a start. Together, human and alien forces pushed the disorganized Malreth back, away from the helpless planet below. On Station Veritas, the command center erupted in cheers. Yuna, a human xenopsychologist, stood with Taemin and watched the celebration. She had been assigned to help bridge the gap between humans and aliens, to explain that her people weren't the monsters from old stories. "They're celebrating us," she said quietly. "I didn't expect that." "They're celebrating survival," Taemin corrected. "Give them time to process what they saw, and the fear will come back. Your people moved too fast, fought too well. It reminds them why they were afraid." Yuna sighed. "So what do we do? You keep showing them your people, not weapons. You eat with them, talk with them, help them understand." Over the next week, that's exactly what happened. Jae-sung established formal diplomatic contact with the council. Yuna worked with Tae-min to create cultural exchange programs. Human engineers showed alien counterparts how to repair their ships, carefully explaining each step rather than just doing it for them. But not everyone was convinced. Admiral Krelvan, commander of the Council's remaining fleet, watched the humans with deep suspicion. He had grown up on stories of human conquest, had learned to see them as the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. "They're helping us now," he said to Jiwoo during a strategy meeting. "But what happens when the Malreth are gone? What's to stop them from deciding they should rule us? For our own good?" Jiwoo had been wondering the same thing. She found herself seeking out Jae-sung, the human diplomat, during off hours. They would sit in the observation deck, watching stars and trying to understand each other. "Why did you really leave?" she asked him one night. "The old records say humans forced peace, then vanished, but they don't say why." Jae-sung was quiet for a long moment. "Because we were becoming what we hated. Every time we intervened to stop a war, we made you dependent on us. Every time we shared technology, we stunted your innovation. We were so powerful that our very presence made you weak. So we left, hoping you would grow stronger without us." "Did we?" Jiwoo asked. "Yes," Jae-sung said, and there was genuine pride in his voice. "The council isn't perfect, but you built it yourselves. 40 species working together, protecting each other. That's more than we ever achieved." "Then why come back?" "Because there's a difference between growing up and dying. We won't rule you, Jiwoo, but we won't watch you die either." Their conversation was interrupted by urgent alarms. The Malreth were attacking again, but something was different. They were retreating from some battles, regrouping in others. Their pattern had changed from mindless consumption to strategic withdrawal. Hyunwoo called an emergency meeting with council leadership. When everyone was assembled, he delivered news that made the previous threat seem small. "The Malreth aren't attacking you," he said. "They're running from something, and they've led it straight to you." The display changed, showing sensor readings from deep space. Something massive was approaching, something that made the Malreth swarm look tiny by comparison. Da-un provided the analysis. "We call them the Vex Thar, extragalactic force. They consumed the Malreth home galaxy 200 years ago. The Malreth have been fleeing ever since." "And you knew about this?" Admiral Krelvan demanded. "We encountered them 3,000 years ago," Hyunwoo admitted. "They're the real reason we went into hiding. We barely survived the first contact. We realized that if they followed us, the galaxy would need to be united to stand a chance. So we disappeared, hoping our absence would force unity." "You used us," Krelvan said. "You let us fight and die while you hid." "Yes," Hyunwoo said simply, and we'll carry that guilt forever. But right now, that doesn't matter. The Vexthar will be here in 3 days. We need to work together, all of us, or nothing will survive. The room fell into shocked silence, broken finally by Tae-min. What do we need to do? Bo-Ra studied the data streams until her eyes burned. The human science officer had been working for 30 hours straight, trying to understand the Vexthar before they arrived. Around her, alien scientists watched in fascination and fear as she pulled patterns from chaos, finding meaning in signals that looked like pure noise. "They're not like anything we've fought before," she explained to the mixed group of human and alien researchers. "The Malreth adapt to threats. The Vexthar consume them. They don't just destroy civilizations, they erase the very concept of them. Every species they encounter is broken down to raw matter and energy." "How did humans survive them?" asked a council scientist. "We didn't," Bo-Ra said quietly. "We ran. Our ancestors encountered the Vexthar at the edge of the galaxy 3,000 years ago. We fought for 3 years and lost 90% of our fleet. Then we realized something. The Vexthar were drawn to our energy signatures. The more we used our advanced technology, the faster they found us." "So you went dark," Ji-Woo said, understanding dawning. "You hid in the void sector where your technology would blend with natural radiation." "And we waited," Bo-Ra confirmed. "We hoped the Vexthar would pass through without noticing this galaxy, or that by the time they arrived, the younger races would be strong enough to stand against them." Tae-min felt anger rising in his chest. "You abandoned us. You could have warned the council, could have helped us prepare." "Would you have believed us?" Bo-Ra asked. "Humans, the monsters from legends, telling you that something worse was coming? You would have thought it was a trick to control you." She was right, and Tae-min knew it. Even now, with humans fighting beside them, half the council still thought it was some elaborate manipulation. The discussion was interrupted by an alert. A ship was approaching Station Veritas, broadcasting human identification codes but using a design centuries out of date. When it docked, a single figure emerged, and every human present immediately stood at attention. Dong-hyun was old by any standard. His hair was white, his face marked by scars from battles fought before most of the station's occupants were born. He had been alive during the first Vexthar encounter, had commanded fleets during humanity's darkest hour. For 3,000 years, he had lived in retirement on New Terra, tending gardens and trying to forget the war. But the war had come back. "Commander Hyunwoo," Dong-hyun said with a nod. "Permission to join your crew?" "Granted," Hyunwoo said immediately. "We need every advantage we can get." Dong-hyun turned to address the assembled council officers. "I know what you think of us. Monsters who forced peace through terror, then vanished like cowards. But let me tell you what really happened 3,000 years ago." He activated a holographic display, showing the galaxy as it had been. "The younger races were tearing each other apart. We tried to help, tried to share our knowledge, but we were too strong. Our presence made you weak, dependent. We became the thing we hated, tyrants who ruled through superior power." The display shifted, showing human fleets engaged in battles across hundreds of systems. "So we made a choice. We would end the war by defeating everyone, then we would leave. We hoped our absence would force you to unite, to grow strong on your own." "But the Vexthar complicated things," Dong-hyun continued. "We encountered them just as we were preparing to isolate ourselves. We fought them, barely survived, and realized the terrible truth. They were drawn to advanced technology. If they followed us to this galaxy while you were still fractured and weak, everyone would die." He looked at each alien officer in turn. "So we went dark. We erased ourselves from your history, became myths and warnings. We hid in the void and watched you grow. Some of us wanted to return and help you prepare, but others argued that any human presence would prevent true unity. We debated for centuries, and by the time we agreed it was time to return, the Malreth arrived. And brought the Vexthar with them, Jiwoo said. Yes, Dong-hyun confirmed. Now we face the war we tried to prevent. But there's one advantage we didn't have before. You're stronger than you were. Not as strong as you could be, but stronger. In the ship docks, Minseo performed final checks on her fighter. She was young, barely 25, and had never expected to be making history. But Commander Hyunwoo had chosen her to lead the first mixed-species squadron, combining human pilots with alien volunteers. Her wingmates were as nervous as she was. 4 humans, 6 aliens from different species, all of them trained separately, but now expected to fight as one unit. They had been practicing for 2 days, learning each other's flying styles, figuring out how to communicate across language barriers and cultural differences. Remember, Minseo told them over the comm, we're not trying to be the best human squadron or the best alien squadron. We're trying to be the best squadron, period. That means trusting each other completely. Easy to say, one of the alien pilots responded. Hard to do when we've been taught to fear humans our whole lives. I know, Minseo said, but fear is what the Vexthar want. They consume civilizations by making them turn on each other. If we fight divided, we die. If we fight together, we have a chance. They launched for a training exercise, their ships forming up in a mixed formation pattern that Sung-ho's tactical team had designed. It felt wrong at first, breaking both human and alien doctrine. But as they practiced, something clicked. The formation allowed each species to cover the other's weaknesses, to amplify each other's strengths. On Station Veritas, a tense meeting was taking place. The Malreth had requested a truce, offering to share intelligence on the Vexthar in exchange for protection. Admiral Krelvan was furious at the idea of allying with the creatures who had killed billions, but Hyunwoo was pragmatic. They know the enemy better than we do, he argued. They've been fighting and running from the Vexthar for 2 centuries. That experience is valuable. They're murderers, Krelvan said. So were we, Dong-hyun interjected quietly. 3,000 years ago, humans killed billions during the Galactic War. We justified it as necessary, as self-defense. Then we realized we had become the monsters we were trying to stop. The Malreth are the same, a species doing terrible things because they're desperate to survive. If we can't forgive that, we have no right to ask the Council to forgive us. The words hung in the air. Finally, Jiwoo spoke. The real question is, can we afford not to work with them? The Vexthar will be here in 48 hours. We need every advantage. The vote was close, but the truce was approved. Malreth ships, damaged and desperate, joined the defensive fleet forming around Station Veritas. Engineers from 3 different categories of species worked together to combine human weapons, alien shields, and Malreth biological sensors into hybrid systems. Da-eun coordinated the engineering effort, moving between crews and explaining technical concepts across language barriers. She watched humans teaching aliens, aliens teaching Malreth, all of them learning to see past old hatreds. It was messy and imperfect, but it was working. Bora made a breakthrough in the Vexthar analysis. I found their weakness, she announced during a command briefing. They operate on pure efficiency. They can't understand the concept of sacrifice for something beyond yourself. Every decision they make is about optimal resource allocation. How does that help us? Hyunwoo asked. Because we can do things they can't predict, Bora explained. Acts of self-sacrifice, fighting for causes beyond survival, protecting those weaker than ourselves. These concepts don't exist in their calculations. If we can exploit that, we might survive. Dong-hyun smiled grimly. So we beat them by being willing to die for each other. That's very human. That's very alive, Yuna corrected. Every species here understands sacrifice. We just need to show the Vexthar what happens when people fight for something bigger than themselves. The defensive fleet assembled at the Veritas line, a hastily constructed barrier of ships, weapons platforms, and converted asteroids. 40 species stood together, alongside humans and even Malreth. 3,000 years of history had led to this moment, the first time the galaxy truly united against a common threat. And in the darkness beyond, the Vexthar approached, vast and terrible and utterly confident in their inevitable victory. The Vexthar emerged from the darkness like a nightmare made physical. Their vessels were geometric nightmares, structures that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. Sensors glitched trying to count them. Conservative estimates put their fleet at over 10,000 ships. The Veritas line had less than 2,000. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Commander Hyunwoo watched the impossible odds with calm acceptance. Around him, his crew prepared for a battle they might not survive. Beside him, Dong-hyun stood at parade rest, his old eyes reflecting memories of the last time humanity had faced this enemy. "All ships report ready," Da-un announced. "Human, Council, and Malreth vessels integrated into defensive grid. It's not perfect, but it's holding." "It'll have to be enough," Hyunwoo said. He opened a fleet-wide channel. "This is Commander Hyunwoo to all vessels. Today we face an enemy that has consumed galaxies. They expect us to break, to scatter, to die alone like every other civilization they've encountered. They're wrong." He paused, letting his words sink in. 3,000 years ago, my ancestors made a choice. They believed the galaxy was worth saving, even if it meant giving up everything they had built. Today, we honor that choice, not by dying heroically, but by showing the universe what cooperation really means. Human, alien, even former enemies, all of us standing together. That's something the Vexthar can't understand, and it's why we're going to win. The Vexthar attacked without warning or communication. Their weapons were beyond comprehension, beams that didn't just destroy matter, but erased it from existence. Shields failed instantly. Armor meant nothing. Ships died in silence, their crews gone before they could scream. The first wave hit the Veritas line and shattered a dozen ships in seconds, but the line held. For every vessel destroyed, 2 more moved to cover the gap. Human tactics met alien determination, met Malreth adaptability, and somehow it worked. The defense grid absorbed the attack and held firm. "Their weapons operate on quantum erasure," Bo-Ra reported from the science station. "They're targeting the probability of matter existing. We can't block it, but we can dilute it by spreading out." "All ships, disperse formation," Hyunwoo ordered. "Maximum spread, maintain covering fire." The fleet scattered into a loose cloud, each ship far enough from others that a single attack couldn't destroy multiple vessels. The Vexthar adjusted, their ships moving with mechanical precision to exploit the gaps, but they encountered something unexpected. Min Seo's mixed squadron, her 10 ships moved through the chaos like dancers, their formation impossible for the Vexthar to predict because it combined 3 different tactical doctrines into one fluid whole. When the enemy targeted the human ships, alien vessels provided covering fire. When they focused on the aliens, human ships struck from unexpected angles. The Malreth pilot provided biological sensors that detected Vexthar movements before their tactical computers registered them. "It's working," Min Seo reported. "They can't adapt to us because we're not following any single pattern." "All squadrons, adopt mixed formation protocols," Hyunwoo ordered. "We fight together or not at all." On Station Veritas, Ji-woo coordinated the defense grid alongside Jae-sung. They had been working together so long that communication had become almost telepathic. She would see a gap in the defenses. He would already be routing ships to cover it. He would identify a threat. She would have weapons targeting it before he finished speaking. "This is what we could have been," Jae-sung said during a brief lull. human and alien, working together from the start instead of after 3,000 years of fear. Maybe we needed those 3,000 years, Jiwoo replied. Maybe we had to grow up first. The battle raged for hours. Ships died on both sides, but the Veritas line held. Then the Vexthar did something unexpected. They began to withdraw. Not retreating, but regrouping. Their perfect efficiency had encountered an inefficient variable. The defenders were supposed to break, but they weren't breaking. They're adapting their strategy, Bo-Ra warned. Analyzing our patterns. Whatever advantage we have, we're about to lose it. Dong-hyun stepped forward. Then we stop using patterns. Commander Hyunwoo, I'm requesting permission for a solo assault on their command structure. That's suicide, Hyunwoo said flatly. Yes, Dong-hyun agreed. But I'm old, and I've lived too long watching others fight my war. Besides, the Vexthar don't understand sacrifice. Let's teach them. Before Hyunwoo could refuse, Dong-hyun was moving. He took a small fighter, one of the old models from the first Vexthar encounter, loaded with weapons that shouldn't exist anymore. Sung-ho and his special operations team tried to follow, but Dong-hyun locked them out of his flight path. This is my fight, he transmitted, but I need everyone to see it. Bo-Ra, are you recording? Yes, Bo-Ra said, understanding immediately what he intended. Good. Tae-min, I want you to broadcast what happens next to every ship, every station, every world that can receive. Show them what we fight for. Dong-hyun's fighter accelerated toward the Vexthar fleet at impossible speeds. Their weapons targeted him instantly. Erasure beams converging from a dozen angles. But he didn't evade. Instead, he broadcast on every frequency, in every language the galaxy knew. My name is Dong-hyun. 3,000 years ago, I fought the Vexthar and ran. I've spent 3 millennia feeling like a coward, hiding while others grew strong. But I learned something in those years. Strength isn't about power or weapons. It's about being willing to stand for something bigger than yourself. His fighter was hit. Erasure beams tore through shields and armor. But he kept transmitting, kept flying. The Vexthar think we're just resources to consume. They think efficiency is everything. But they're wrong. We're not efficient. We're messy and emotional, and we make terrible tactical decisions, and that's what makes us alive. The ship was disintegrating around him. But Dong-hyun reached the Vexthar command cluster. He armed his final weapon, a dimensional disruptor that would tear a hole in space itself. To everyone watching, don't remember me as a hero. Remember me as proof that every life has meaning, every sacrifice matters, and together we can face anything. The explosion was visible across half the sector. The dimensional disruptor didn't just destroy the Vexthar command ships. It created a cascade that disrupted their entire fleet's coordination. For the first time in recorded history, the Vexthar hesitated. And in that moment of hesitation, the galaxy struck back. Every ship in the Veritas line opened fire simultaneously. Human weapons, alien shields, Malreth sensors, all working in perfect coordination. Minseo's squadron executed a maneuver that should have been impossible, weaving through the disrupted enemy formation and striking critical nodes. Da-Yun activated weapons she had hoped they would never need, systems so powerful that using them would drain entire planets' worth of energy. But it worked. The Vexthar, faced with an enemy that wouldn't break and couldn't be understood, made their own unprecedented choice. They retreated. Not destroyed, but driven back, their invasion halted by the galaxy's first true united stand. In the aftermath, Station Veritas was a mixture of celebration and mourning. Thousands had died, including Dong-hyun. But billions lived, and for the first time in galactic history, multiple species had fought and bled together as equals. Hyun-woo stood in the observation deck, looking at the stars and thinking about the old commander who had given everything to prove a point. Yuna joined him along with Taimin, Jiwoo, and representatives from a dozen other species. "What happens now?" Taimin asked. "Do humans return to hiding?" "No," Hyunwoo said. Donghyun's message was clear. "Isolation doesn't work. We're stronger together, but we won't rule you. We won't make decisions for you. We'll stand beside you as partners." "The council will need to be reformed," Jiwoo said. "Equal representation for all species, including humans and even Malreth, if they're willing to change their ways." "They are," came a translated Malreth response. "We've seen what cooperation achieves. We were wrong to consume rather than communicate." Over the following months, a new council formed, not based on fear or power, but on mutual respect and shared sacrifice. Yuna worked with Taimin to establish cultural exchange programs. Bora opened the human archives, sharing technology carefully, teaching rather than just giving. Sung-Ho trained mixed-species special operations teams. Minseo's squadron became a symbol of unity, proof that different peoples could trust each other with their lives. The Vexthar would return eventually. Everyone knew it. But next time, the galaxy would be ready, not as separate species, but as one unified civilization. On the anniversary of the battle, a monument was unveiled on Station Veritas. It bore the names of everyone who had died, human and alien and Malreth. At the top, in letters that could be read by every known language, was a quote from Donghyun's final transmission: "Together we can face anything." And standing before that monument, looking at the names of the fallen and the faces of the survivors, the galaxy finally understood. Humans had never been the monsters from legend. They had been the warning about what happens when power exists without purpose, when strength exists without sacrifice. The real lesson wasn't that humans were dangerous. It was that anyone could become what they had been, tyrants who meant well but controlled through strength. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way. Now they would build something better together, and the legends of the past would become the foundation of a better future.